Unerwartet singt eine schöne Frauenstimme.
Good evening, everybody. You're listening to Fold by Fold. It's the podcast on experimental music, new music, all kinds of experimental stuff out there. Last week we had Rautaku Uko, and now I'm talking to Fabian, who is a third of black metal band Kluizenaer, who is also, I think, a third of GALL? Are you three?
Yes.
A third of GALL? And you also have your solo stuff going on. Well, welcome, Fabian.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute honor to be talking to you. I have to apologize in advance for the mic quality in this episode because this is the first time on this podcast we are actually recording live with a very subpar podcast. We are sitting in an undisclosed situation somewhere in Dortmund.
Yeah.
It's an old Gothic cellar. We are torturing Nazis in the next room. This is how we do it. Well, Fabian, really glad to have you on here. How do we start this? Maybe I should give a brief overview. So you've done noise stuff by yourself?
Yeah, that's I guess what I started with as a music-wise kind of. Yeah.
Then there's GALL, which is already quite an experimental metal outfit.
Yeah.
Quite left field.
It's rather experimental, I guess.
And now your main project, and they've got an album coming up, so everybody check the links in the description. This is gonna be good. Kluizenaer, which is your, I would call it experimental black metal group. You're a little bit apprehensive about that term.
It's black metal with experimental and ambient parts, I suppose, but I think music-wise it's probably not complex enough to be called experimental, I think.
Don't say that. Come on, you're breaking my heart. So, okay, to anybody who has never heard of you, has never listened to your stuff prior, like, what's the briefest description of like your artistic goal?
With this project and specifically,
maybe with all three.
Yeah, it's different ranges of themes and aesthetics and emotions, I guess. And Kluizenaer specifically, I think, is more like contemplative for me personally, like more. Well, it's called. It's supposed to be emotional as well, but not in such a personal way. More kind of, in suiting to the aesthetics of black metal, I suppose. Like in this religious and all of humanity, the human condition kind of way, I suppose. And it's supposed to be, I think, mainly atmospheric and emotional, and that's what I want to conjure with people who hear it. I guess that it's desperate, really.
And it is like when I listened to your back catalog, I was absolutely stunned because so much. I mean, extreme metal, it always kind of focuses on emotionality, doesn't it? But usually it's very personal. And I found with all of your stuff that there is a kind of universality to it, which is really could speak, in my opinion, to anybody who is open-minded enough to check it out. This is the first time I've had somebody from the metal field on this podcast. So, but I really don't like the distinction between like popular music and what we have in German, U-Musik and E-Musik,
Yeah.
Just entertainment music and serious music. I don't think there's such a thing because, I mean, listen to Kluizenaer, listen to your noise project. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of that project.
Contra Life or Idealist.
Yeah. It's Contra Life, exactly. Like if you listen to Kluizenaer or Contra Life, there isn't really a, I don't know, it's not really a painting of a singular person or anything. It's just a painting of the headspace itself.
I think especially with Kluizenaer, we have this whole lyrical concept since a while now that I never try to refer to people, singular people, or like humans, like humanity in general. I have the lyrical it. So whenever I speak about like human emotions or whatever, or the human perspective, it is always referring to it feels such and such or does this and that.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to be like kind of this distant view onto this range of of very human emotions. Like I do not claim to have this position of being able to objectively view humankind as such, but I thought it's an interesting perspective to write from, and to as a thought experiment, kind of to go from there.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely feel that. Okay, I think maybe just, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit lost with the structure of this interview. Maybe we should do it chronologically, right? Start
Maybe,
at Contra
yeah.
Live.
Well,
Tell me something about that, and also, this is a nerdy podcast. We have mostly musicians listening, so don't be afraid to get into the technical nitty gritty, because we're really excited to hear how you make this stuff.
If there is any. Well, I think I started playing in bands with several friends with whom I'm still making music when we were about age 16, 17, and we had several bands, and the one that is still ongoing the longest, I think, is GALL, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it was around the same time that I started my solo projects. I was just really fucking around with some software that I had on my computer, and I had never before really tried, I did not grow up making music. Nobody in my family is really musical that much.
Very interesting.
So, I kind of just wanted to make sounds, I guess. So I was trying out, and the first things that I made were all made in video editing software, for lack of any better alternatives and of any experience on how to start off, which I think looking back at it might have helped making it a bit more interesting in a way, as in that, just limitation breeds creativity. I think. So it was around that time that I just started making noise, and I think Kluizenaer specifically, which came about 2014, 15, first project I started, one of the first projects I started on my own, suiting to the name, Kluizenaer meaning hermit in Dutch. Was teenage me trying to make something of my own and to express myself, I guess, with the little means that I had. And
I'm sorry about the farting noises. These Nazis are acting up again.
They're trying to break out.
Exactly. They're trying to drill holes in our, gothic lair built for them.
And I think with Kluizenaer, it was I tried to make something which was within the aesthetic range of black metal, which was music which, I guess I dealt with most in that time, listening to it a lot and trying, building my identity as a teenager through it, but without ability to play guitar or anything. I couldn't really start a project like that. Yeah. So it just ended up being weird noises and sampled stuff from different kind of sources. Try to create something with the things I had at hand, I suppose.
This is absolutely genius. Actually, this is new to me too, because I was under the assumption that you at least have some basic guitar training or something.
No whatsoever.
This is fucking crazy, because your first tape, Contra Live, the one you gave me, the cassette tape.
Yeah.
I think that's the first publication you did?
Might have been. Yeah, I think the first ones were with the others, with my bandmates, but crappy, punky kind of projects. But it definitely was the first one I made on my own. Yeah.
And listening to that, that's just insane. I cannot believe this is just somebody without any musical training, just arranging samples.
Or talent, for that matter.
Yeah, just wow. Holy shit. Tell the people how you did it. Because when you told me that, I lost my shit. I couldn't believe it.
Well, yeah, it was just recording through laptop speakers, partially recording stuff, just trying out the video editing program I used. I think mostly it was Adobe Premiere, which I started with for some reason.
So fellas, you gotta get this straight. Like Fabian really made crazy ass noise tape in a video editing software.
Yeah, I mean, it is very lo-fi and gnarly, and I don't know, yeah, it just came about and tried out stuff.
Just insane. Yeah, as I said, you will find links in the description to all of it. You will find links to Contra Live, GALL, and Kluizenaer. Just so good. And you're mainly in the metal context. You're mainly acting as a vocalist.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm mostly a vocalist, and I try to incorporate my experimenting with ambient stuff, and by now I've started to learn some like a bit of keyboard and stuff, but it's very rudimentary. So yeah. The other two in the band are much more talented musicians than I am.
Don't say that. Come on.
I think what I bring to the table is really just having ideas for different kind of approaches. Yeah. And that's something that I think I always had, like ideas for band names and song titles without having bands, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So and started to back that up with music at some point, I suppose.
Okay, maybe just a question that I ask almost everybody on the podcast, because I'm just so fascinated by how the same question yields so different results. What I'm always curious about, in your artistic work, do you think that what you do artistically is something that you discover, or do you think that's something that you invent? Like, is your composition, is it something that comes from outside and you restructure it? Or is it something that really comes from the inside and you need to find the methods of expression for it?
That's a tough call.
I know.
I think it's mostly really reinterpreting, rearranging ideas that you pick up from different points, and like this like gathering ideas, like what would it sound like if you would have the guitar sound of this band with the emotive expression of that band or project or music or whatever. And just trying to combine weird concepts of sound and of visuals and lyrics. Like, I wouldn't say that that is like a divine inspiration or something coming from within. Like, I think for someone who listens to so much music myself, like, obviously you end up being influenced by it in one or the other way.
Sure.
And I mean, there's this quote, like, being an artist is to learn how to steal like an artist,
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there's this quote which is often attributed to Igor Stravinsky. I'm not completely sure that it's actually a Stravinsky quote, but according to compositional mythology, Stravinsky said at some point that lesser artists try to copy, and really good artists, they just steal.
Yeah,
and from the most diverse sources. Yeah.
So I think art, in a way, or whatever, the creative output, whatever you want to call it, always is a collage to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you put things together that you get from different sources, and that's how to make it interesting, I think, is keeping this vital and mixing it up, the sources. And I think collage is a good metaphor for it, really.
Absolutely. Holy shit, this as I said, every time I post this question to somebody, there's something mind-blowing that comes out of the person being interviewed. It's just always something different, and it's always great. Okay, to get a little bit back on track, maybe let's talk GALL for a little bit. Because what the fuck is that? I know for sure that it's like definitely one of my favorite metal bands, if you can even call it a metal band.
Yeah, like, I think the source is less metal than it is really punk at a certain extent, or like I think it started off as like power violence, which is basically hardcore punk that went faster.
Super violent.
And we just, back when we had another band before that, which ended up being a bit silly at some point for our own the way we felt about it. And we wanted to go somewhere else, and that's what it ended up being. And it's really basically it's noisy power violence, but with the approach of being experimental and endorsing noise and electronics, which is not new. Like there has been music like that since the 90s and or earlier probably. But yeah, it's just really fun, and it's mostly about intensity. It's definitely a live band, and our live sets are always like 50 minutes, which involve about 20 songs, which are very much structured and rehearsed, really. So like often people think it's just really improvisational and just random noises, but it's very structured. And it's 15 minutes without breaks, just going from start to finish as fast as we can, pretty much. And it's basically based on rhythms. Like it's really not melodic at any sense. Like we are bass guitar.
Like let's say it's not tonal.
It's not tonal.
There's definitely melody to it. There's like temporality to it. But this is not what you're concerned with, right? You're trying to write pretty songs.
It's the exact opposite. It's kind of like when we come up with the parts, we kind of try to make it like short in a way that the moment when someone in the audience could start nodding their head to it, we have to change the part and get to the next part. Kind of that's a bit of the concept, and it's just drums and bass guitar and vocals and noises.
Yeah.
And the bass guitar is heavily distorted so that you can barely hear any picking.
Yeah.
And there also isn't really picking. Like there is not really like playing chords. Yeah, it's basically just shredding.
Yeah.
People have asked our bass player like how is he able to play that fast, but he doesn't really do anything besides at like certain parts of the music are definitely improvisational to a certain extent. But it's mostly just trying to be overwhelming, I think. Yeah.
Yo, and you fucking succeed at that. I absolutely urge every listener we have right now to check out GALL and all the other projects too. But I also have to make a little disclaimer because this is really not music you can. This is not easy listening.
No.
You cannot put this on
heavy
and do
listening.
the dishes. Like if you try to put a GALL tape on and you want to do the dishes, you'll end up crashing your dishes. It's really fucking intense music, but it's so great. And I just love that your ultimate goal is discomfort.
Yeah.
Because objectively, if we want to rate music, if we want to say, is this good music or is this bad music, I think it always comes down to, does it succeed at its own goals that it sets up,
Yeah.
And like GALL. That's some disturbing shit. And I totally relate to the thing about y'all being a live band, because I listened to your recordings and I was like, damn, this is good. But then I saw like a really bad phone recording of your gig at this Totiva.
Yeah.
And then it clicked with me. Then I was like, damn, this is different. And we're going to talk a little bit more about live presentation when we come to Kluizenaer. Is there anything left to say about GALL, maybe?
Well, not much at the moment. I think we have been a bit slow on making or doing anything since the pandemic, because we were actually on a tour which was supposed to go about a month, but we had to cancel after 2 weeks because that was exactly when COVID hit in Europe. It was very
now you gotta cancel all those tours without a driver's license.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to dab on that a little bit. Let's not get in depth about that. Okay, so if that's everything about GALL, then let's move on to the most exciting part of this discussion, which is Kluizenaer. Now, Kluizenaer, as you've already said, the word is a Dutch word.
Yeah, it's
you
Dutch.
grew up in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, I grew up bilingual and I'm half Dutch, half German. And for some reason this project just ended up having this Dutch name, and the first release had Dutch subtitles as well.
Yeah.
But in the process of becoming a real band and my me wanting to write decent lyrics, I had to switch over to German because I'm just more fluent and more able to express myself in that language.
Yeah.
So,
And those lyrics, honestly, they like if Gull is really trying to induce discomfort and succeeds at that, I would say the Kluizenaer is a little bit more, I don't know, introspective. A little bit
definitely
more impressionist.
introspective.
Yeah. And it just creates a wonderful sense of like sweet, bittersweet melancholy.
Yeah,
It's just
I
beautiful.
think that's what we go for, kind of.
Absolutely beautiful. I should say, first time I saw Kluizenaer was you were already in 3 or 4. And you were playing at a punk venue. I went there after playing 2 jazz gigs. I was tired as fuck. I was thinking about not even coming because I was so down. But then I entered the club and I opened the door to the venue, and I didn't see shit because you are actually not a 3-piece band, you are a 5-piece band.
Yeah.
Because 2 fog machines
Yeah,
are
2
integrated into your band setup. Like, tell me something about that. How did that came to be?
Well, I mean, it's not the most original thing to do as a metal band to have a shit ton of fog, I think. But when we started playing as a 3-piece band with a different guitarist back then, on our first tour, 2017, and when we released our EP, Das Ungebrochene Schweigen, we had a different visual concept live. We had a projector through which we screened scenes from the movie Le Inferno from 1913 or something, like a silent movie. About
one with Dante's Inferno,
Dante's Inferno, exactly.
The really great set pieces.
Yeah.
Like watching it is like fucking surreal.
Yeah,
like,
it's gorgeous.
It literally looks like hell. I have no idea how they did it in 1913.
It's like sometimes said to be the first horror movie, pretty much, which I think is interesting, and it worked really well for the set we had back then, and we were happy about it. Although it was just like coincidentally the visuals would align with the music at some points, but it just happened as we went. But when we made the new material with a different guitarist, because our old guitar player, he went to make different music at some points, and we were we rearranged a bit. The visuals were not really working. We didn't have a good idea for another silent movie or something, although the aesthetic really worked well. But and we actually started having this fog machine during rehearsals, just like in our small tiny cellar space, just having clouds everywhere. And it just helps getting into the music, I think, and it communicates, I think, with the whole atmosphere of it. And it was also like a no-brainer for us to go with a lot, like not just a bit of fog and smoke going on, but just like as much as we can get into a room.
We are talking about walls of fog, like motherfuckers at home. You can't imagine this. When I went to your show, it was insane. Like I opened the door, there was fog like hitting me over.
Yeah,
I could barely get in. Then I got in there. First thought I had was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have a panic attack. Second thought was like,
sorry about that.
No problem, man. Just really, like in the future, please do a trigger warning or something, because Jesus fucking Christ.
we will.
And first thought was like, damn, I'm gonna have a panic attack. Second thought was like, no, I will have to force myself to like get as much of it as I can take, you know. And then the third thought was all my concerns flying away. The panic lifting. Just standing there became extremely meditative, became extremely, I don't know, it's really crazy. You say that the fog helps you get into the spirit of making that music.
Definitely.
I can totally feel that, like even for a listener, like you stand there, the fog hits you, it's not just a gimmick, it's like literally integral to the way you're supposed to feel and emote through this music.
And really it also just helps us with like sticking with our thoughts to ourselves. We're all not people who are really comfortable standing on stages or whatever. So just not seeing the audience and the audience only seeing us as shapes. Yeah, that just works really well for us.
That was crazy because after your gig, you went and talked to me at the bar, and I like, who's this guy? And at some point, oh shit, you were the vocalist in Kluizenaer, right? So I couldn't even match you to that person on stage because like those were schemes, those were shapes, those weren't people, they were spirits, essentially.
It's nice to hear.
I was kind of reminded of like Plato's cave, where you see the reflections of some shadows on a wall, and you start to believe that those shadows are actually what is causing the sound.
Yeah.
This is so great. It's really like a psychological experience. If you can ever check out Kluizenaer live, fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like really, guys, go ahead and do it. Now with our discussion of Kluizenaer, we've jumped in at the first EP as a 3-piece. But there was actually a EP which you did before that. Where you were alone.
There were actually a couple of releases before that on several live recordings from noise sets. I did or partially did with back then our drummer, who was also the drummer in GALL, and was the drummer from bands before that. Like we've known each other since we were kids, and we just started like doing the live stuff together, and we recorded that. But the very first recording was it was like 2015, I think, or something. It was me and myself. But I took down those releases from bandcamp since I felt they were not really representative of the project as it is now, and also they were like made at such a, I don't know, like young age from my perspective now, that I didn't really feel that they were artistically that, I don't know, like matured, you know?
Which is fucking crazy because every time I talk to you, you're very apprehensive about seeing yourself as a composer. You're like, I'm barely a musician, like bullshit like that. But then you make very educated decisions on what you put out and shit, what you revise. This is something that composers do. You recognize that, right? Like you're going through the movements. Like if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. If it composes, it's a composer. That's how it works, right?
I mean, if you say so, you are the composer in my eyes.
I'm barely a composer. See? Now we have the same problem with in the other direction.
Yeah.
No, really, I think you should take your shit more seriously because it's serious.
I mean,
it's really good.
The way it is taking shape now, and with the musicians I have in this project with me, and whom I can create this together, like with. I am taking it serious, and I feel like we're going a good way, and it feels right. So and I think it's more fruitful to do it with other people anyway.
Definitely, like at the end, I mean, I've made lots of music on my own, but fundamentally, I think music is a social achievement.
Yeah,
it's very much about. Even just putting music out by yourself, it's still a social phenomenon.
Yeah.
Just because it gets heard by other people who are not you. And like the true spirit of collaboration is obviously something that always enriches an artist. You know, like there's never the moment where a single composer gets a band and the band is worse than the stuff they did before. That just never happens. Like whenever creative minds meet each other and get along well, like shit happens. It's good shit usually. Now tell me something, going back to the Kluizenaer gig. Sorry, I'm just really, I was so impressed.
Thank you.
And I felt really bad about not having spent more time looking into your stuff because all I've known to that point was GALL, and I didn't even know that the people from GALL were sometimes involved in Kluizenaer. I didn't even know that. Like to me, those were two separate entities.
They are very much, I think, as in like the whole concept of it. Very different styles of music and different approaches to making music and to performing music for sure. But yeah, we're
yeah, exactly. Going back to that gig, one of those things that really impressed me. And I know you don't like to talk about it, like your whole self-belittling shtick is very much at work there. But holy shit, your electroacoustic instrument. Tell people about that, because I saw it through the layers of fog. I could like think, oh, what is he doing there? Does he have a MIDI keyboard? Is he triggering samples? What's going on there? Tell us how you do it, because when I heard about it, I was amazed.
Well, it's really not that complicated. It's just this chunk of metal that I found in the cellar of our first rehearsal space, and it's basically, I don't know, just like a big piece of metal, and I have a contact mic to it, and it makes this metallic weird sounds, and
there's
it's
a
fun.
contact mic, and there's also a delay device or something, right?
Yeah, there's just a contact mic ran through overdrive and a delay and a bunch of reverb.
Could you tell us which pedals? Because I know that nerds are listening.
I don't even know. Like it's just
great.
Random pedals that we have and in our rehearsal space, and it's nothing special really. It's not like thought through that much. It just
Wow.
I found it and it worked, and we were all happy with using it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to incorporate more different weird analog pieces into the ambient noisy aspects of it, so it just keeps being interesting and not just repeats itself. But yeah,
I would be very honored to actually do that crossover set at Destructiva this year.
yeah, I love that.
Also, like with working with analog stuff in this kind of field, to me it's a little bit dangerous, because you can easily overdo it with the synths.
Yeah,
You know, it's a very small line.
it's also sometimes, like, especially when you play in like small punk venues and whatever, it's sometimes hard to incorporate that stuff without ending up just having feedback and while trying to, you know, give the instruments, the alternative instruments presence next to the guitars and drums and whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. It all needs to be mixed down in a completely different way. What I'm thinking about, if we actually end up collaborating, would be basically you do your stuff, and all of your mics go into the venue PA, and it also goes into a mixing desk for me. And from then on, I can add effects and stuff, and I can feed it into feedback loops, which creates very interesting timbres, you know. And I think timbres that fit with your aesthetic, not overly synthetic, but very much, you know, earthy.
Should be gritty. Yeah, that sounds great.
And
looking
I'm also
forward
thinking
to it.
about incorporating field recordings, because that would just put the atmosphere to another level.
Definitely, field recordings are great for adding texture and just a feel of spaciousness, I guess.
Yeah.
I've actually tried to, like, the intro of the set is actually, I don't know if it's fair to call it a field recording, since I admittedly found it on the internet, but it's sounds from a glacier, which are just someone apparently recorded the sound of the icebergs moving and whatnot. And I obviously ice is a good topic to go with in black metal, and I just use that to have this rumbling in the beginning of like this spacious weird room that you can create with it, you know. Starting
it's
off,
kind of interesting working with these recordings, because even if you are in the audience and you don't know the origin of the sound, it's still moving, right? It still speaks to somebody. It still has the kind of harmonic timbral content that does something to people.
It's nice that it seems to work.
Yeah, and if it works, then keep doing it. Right? This is the easiest method of decision making when composing. Just keep on doing what works.
It feels right.
Always a good way. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think we're already past the half-hour mark, which is fantastic. Like, this interview basically conducted itself.
Yeah, that went quick.
You've got a new album coming up.
Yeah, we...
Tell us everything about it.
We have a new record, our first LP. It's about it's also our first actual long player of 40 minutes or whatever.
And I've just bought it. Well, actually, I've just gotten the money. I still have to hand you over the money. But I will be in the very, very fortunate position to be able to listen to the album before release.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
It was actually, it was recorded last December, so it has been sitting for almost a year, or for more than a year now, I guess. Waiting for the vinyl, which is, hell
we've got
right
a crisis with vinyl right now.
Yeah, we
right?
have
like
the vinyl
pressing
crisis.
plants, the pressing plants are all very much over scheduled.
Yeah, it seems so.
Yeah. There seems to be like a little bit like in the oil crisis in the 70s. It just seems to be hard to produce vinyl these days. So goddamn, I'm really glad you took the time to wait for that, because damn, I need to own this.
Yeah, we were able to put it out on vinyl through Wolves of Hades from Amsterdam, and another label called Breath, Sun, Bone, Blood, which is from Berlin and France, but also the States. It's very international, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's out on vinyl now. It's called Ein Abbild der Leere, a depiction of emptiness, which took me a long time to find a title for it, but at some point, like half sleeping, I had this idea, and I'm happy with it, which is the hardest part, I think, being happy with creative decisions. And I'm really satisfied with how it came out, and it turned out much more hi-fi in a way and professional sounding than what we first estimated when we started making it, because our first release was much more DIY. And we all thank it to our audio engineer and recording guy, Ramon, from Raya Rec Recordings, I think it's called. Yeah. So it turned out really fine, and it's 4 tracks, one of which is a purely ambient track with guest vocals from a very interesting musician from around my area called Osfin. And I don't know.
At some point.
Some name drops here. I don't know. We managed to get a nice booklet with it, which was important for me to give the lyrics a certain meaningful representation in the record itself, because it's one of the things that I can contribute to the music, and I try to do it in a good way. I try. And the lyrics were very much influenced by like several kinds of poetry, but also like mystical religious topics, but more in a vague way. It's definitely vague. And I think one of the main inspirations was poet Celan, the German poet. And
thank you so much for mentioning it. Because honestly, like whenever I look into your lyrics and shit like that, it always reminds me of this late 1800s, early modernity kind of pessimism. It's always right in there.
I mean, if you know the Celan's poetry, it is very bleak and dark, and it speaks of his experience as being a Jewish man in the time of the Third Reich coming up, and it's a tough topic, definitely. And we also incorporated a short sound sample, a spoken word sample of Celan reading his own poem, Psalm, which also appears in a live set and on the record, which was an element that we spent much time on thinking about it, if it's like appropriate to use it, or if it's disappropriating the whole theme,
which is complicated, with Holocaust era
us being Germans, and but we felt like, since it's such an influence on the lyrics and on the aesthetic and poetic range of the music and the content of it, it just felt right to go for it, but at the same time we don't claim to have the same experience or anything like that would be impossible. But it just worked really well with the sentences, the words that he uses, with the whole concept of the music, I think, with the bleakness of human existence, pretty much. And I'm happy we went for that.
Which is never, a new concept, but who the fuck cares? Because it's a universal concept, and each facet, each expression of that truth will be unique. So, which is just fucking beautiful. Like, everybody listening to this, if you can fuck with black metal adjacent stuff, check it out. By the time of the release of this podcast episode, 2 singles are already out. I'm gonna link to both of them in the description. The album drops on February 18th, I believe.
It's about 2 weeks from now.
Exactly, 2 weeks from now, which is like maybe 1 week from when this drops. I don't know. I will have to figure out the scheduling.
We'll see.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think we've discussed about everything. Is there anything left?
Well, I don't know. We'll hope to play a lot of live gigs because I think that is one of the main focuses of the band, to actually play live as well, which is not necessarily typical for black metal, I think.
Right.
And it's not always easy to transport this music into a live setting, but so far it worked well for us, and we feel very comfortable with like playing in the small venues, the DIY context, kind of punk culture, really, more than metal shows, for that matter.
Fuck metal shows. Like you wouldn't fit a metal program if you're programmed with like other extreme metal bands. It just wouldn't fit.
I would really prefer to play with like noise ambient stuff and experimental and or like, I don't know, like different kind of extreme music.
I'm gonna give you the Corona fist for that.
Yeah.
Because at some point we're gonna appear on the same lineup.
We'll make it happen.
Hopefully
this year.
Hopefully this year at Destructiva. This is not promised, but maybe I will be joining Kluizenaer for a little bit during, at the tail end of the set. I hope we can make it happen.
Yeah, let's hope.
We don't even know if the festival's gonna happen, you know, with the fucking pandemic and shit.
Fucking COVID.
So, yeah, just keep tuned, fellas. If you're in Central Europe, try to see them live. I think you've done shows in the Netherlands too, and in the Eastern Bloc a little bit.
Well, with the concept as it is now, we've only played Germany, I think.
Okay.
Because the band, the record as it is came to pass as it is now, all happened after the pandemic, kind of. And but we hope to play many more shows in all the countries we can.
Alright, fellas, I guess this is where it's at. You just better check out those links because it's legitimately amazing music. If you get the chance to see him live, you know, if you're in Germany. Holy shit, I've been talking to Fabian from Kluizenaer, also known as... what's the name of your solo project again?
Well, you can find most of the stuff I do solo under the quote-unquote label thing that I do. It's called Ultraviolet Garden.
Yes, this is another thing we completely forgot to talk about. You've got an internet label, right? Ultraviolet Records, and the music on there is so fucking diverse.
Yeah, it just happened as like an output for my own kind of experimental stuff, and also for friends at a certain point. And I try to put out music digitally mostly, and accompanied by like 10 tapes for every release or something. Yeah. So it has a bit of an analog output as well. Maybe come more, maybe if I have enough money to make more tapes for that. Yeah.
I think we could get this crowdfunded, right? Like if somebody just took the time to make like a Kickstarter for it.
Oh yeah.
I have no doubt that it would be possible. Right?
That would mean that I would have to stick to making more releases and making the tapes happen all the time. And I would feel in debt to the people who pay for it. So maybe it's better not to. So I only have to justify it for myself.
Check out Ultraviolet Records. Maybe you can find even the last tape, of the 10 tape run.
Maybe.
I'm really hoping I can put out a release on Ultraviolet. I'm working on a double album right now, but we'll have to figure out if it works, if it just fits your artistic conception of what the label should do.
Well, you put out so much music, something on there will work at some point, so we'll make it happen. I'm sure about that.
Yeah, this is fucking amazing. Alright, fellas, I guess this was it. You've been listening to Fold by Fold. I've been talking to Fabian from Kluizenaer. Also has his own solo project, which I again forgot the name of. Also a member of GALL. So yeah, all the links are in the description. Chronologically, I think. Check it out, fellas. if you don't check it out, I'm gonna put you in my Nazi torture chamber in Dortmund.
Into the dungeon.
In the dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was Fold by Fold, episode 10 or something. We'll be hearing us again on Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye.